Hear ye, hear ye. The following is a reenactment from Perry v. Schwarzenegger, the Prop 8 trial in U.S. District Court. Ryan Kendall, a gay man who works for Denver Police Department and who was subjected to conversion therapy as a youth, is a fact witness for the plaintiffs and is under direct examination by the plaintiff's intervener's lawyer, Ron Flynn. The plaintiffs in this case are two same-sex couples who simply want to marry, just as any other loving couple in America has the right to do. Court is now in session.
Good morning, Mr. Kendall. Where do you live?
I live in Denver, Colorado.
And who do you work for?
I work for the Denver Police Department.
What do you do for the Denver Police Department?
Keep your voice up, Mr. Flynn.
Yes, Your Honor.
I am an NCIC agent.
Can you briefly tell us what an NCIC agent is?
NCIC stands for the National Crime Information Center. It's a database maintained by the FBI, and I have a clearance to work with secure criminal information that's on that database.
Mr. Kendall, I want to talk to you about when you were younger, when you were a child. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
And when were you born?
In 1983.
So you are 26 years old now.
That's correct.
Where did you attend elementary school?
I went to a school called ECA, Evangelical Christian Academy.
While you were a child in Colorado Springs, did you learn of the concept of gay people or homosexuality?
Yes, I remember during the discussion about Amendment 2, during the Amendment 2 campaign, my parents would talk about homosexuals seeking special rights, and how they were essentially evil people, and how they felt threatened, and how our family was threatened by homosexuals.
At that time, did you know what a homosexual was?
No, I didn't know. I knew it was a big, long, scary word, and I found the whole concept very frightening.
Mr. Kendall, what is your sexual orientation?
I am a gay man.
When did you first realize that you were gay?
When I was a little kid, I knew I liked other boys, but I didn't realize that meant I was gay until I was probably 11 or 12 years old.
Okay. And how did you come to realize that it meant that meant you were gay?
I was a precocious kid, so one day I ended up looking up the word homosexual in a dictionary. And I remember reading the definition, something along the lines of a romantic attraction between members of the same sex. And it slowly dawned on me that that's what I was.
Given your prior testimony about homosexuals, how did you feel when you realized that you were gay?
Well, once I connected this all together, I realized that what a homosexual was, the fact that I was a homosexual, and the fact that my family and community did not like this concept. I was scared by that. I realized this was bad news for me. So I kept this a secret, and I hid it as far away from everyone as I could.
Around that time, did anyone talk to you about being gay?
When I was in 7th grade, I remember being taunted about being gay. Some of the older boys and boys in my class would call me names and things like that.
What kind of names would they call you?
I was called a faggot, I was called a homo, a queer, or even just gay.
Other than name calling, did these boys do anything else to you?
I remember one incident. I have worn glasses since I was in the 3rd grade. I need them to see, and a couple of the boys took my glasses and played monkey in the middle, keep away, and threw them over my head until eventually they broke them.
And what was it like for you to be in that school? How did it feel?
It was scary going into that building, realizing these kids were taunting me with a word that was so close to the truth, and it was very upsetting. I would go home and get in the car when my parents would pick me up, crying and telling them what had been going on.
What did your parents do?
My parents were horrified that I was being treated so poorly, so eventually they took me out of that school and placed me into another one.
At the time they did that, did your parents know that you were gay?
No, they did not.
Did your parents ever find out that you were gay?
Yes, when I was 13 years old, at one point my parents discovered my journal. And for the first time in that journal, I had admitted to myself that I was gay. and I'd actually written those words, and they found it and they read it.
And what happened when they found that journal?
My parents flipped out. They were very upset. They were yelling. I don't remember a lot of what they said, but it was pretty scary, the level of their reaction.
Can you remember anything they said to you when they found the journal?
Yes, I remember my mother looking at me and telling me that I was going to burn in hell.
Were you in a religious family?
Yes, I grew up in a very religious family. Church and God were everyday parts of our life.
So, what did you think when your mother told you that?
It was shocking. I never heard anything like that from my mother. I never thought that my parents would ever say anything. I mean, hell was the worst. You don't get much worse than eternal damnation. And I was just totally stunned that they had said that.
Did your parents later tell you anything else about being gay?
After my parents found out, my whole life changed a lot. And my parents didn't take it very well. And I remember my mother calling me names.
Did they make any efforts to put you in any therapy or to change you in any way?
Yes, shortly after this incident, I was sent to a Christian therapist for reversal therapy.
And why do you say it was a Christian therapist?
That's how it was identified to me.
Can you tell us the goal of the Christian therapy?
Yes, I was told that the goal was to make me heterosexual.
How many times did you go to this therapy?
I went 2 or 3 times.
Do you remember anything you did at that therapy?
I remember a little bit. I remember the therapist telling me that homosexuality was inconsistent with Christian teaching, and that my parents didn't want me to be gay, and I needed to change, and that homosexuals were bad people.
Did Christian therapy make you feel better about the situation?
No, it didn't. I always wanted to be a good kid and to make my parents proud. And suddenly, I was in a situation where they were taking me to see this guy who was telling me I was a bad person. And they were telling me I was a bad person. And I remember feeling very, very alone.
Was therapy successful? And by that I mean, did it reach its goal of making you into a heterosexual?
No, I was still gay.
Did you try to become heterosexual during those therapy sessions?
No, I didn't think it was possible.
Why not?
I knew I was gay, just like I knew I am short and I'm half Hispanic. And I just never thought that those facts would change.
When you stopped going to this therapy program, did you go to any other therapy programs?
Yes, my parents had been referred by Focus on the Family to another organization called North.
And what's Focus on the Family?
Focus on the Family is a Christian family ministry based in Colorado Springs, Colorado, where I grew up.
And what's NARTH?
NARTH stands for National Association of Reparative Therapy of Homosexuals. It's a reversal therapy organization based in Encino, California.
Did you voluntarily go to NARTH?
No, my parents made all those decisions for me.
How long were you at NARTH?
About 1.5 years.
From what ages?
14 to 16.
During that time that you were at NARTH, how was your home life?
My home life had changed a lot. It was like night and day. I remember before this all started, I had the kind of parents who would drive me to school, make me lunches, and write notes and put them in my lunchbox. And after this, they were always yelling at me. They were calling me names. And they were just telling me really horrible things. And it became a really emotionally and verbally abusive environment.
What kind of names were they calling you?
My mother would tell me that she hated me, or that I was disgusting, or that I was repulsive. Once she told me that she wished she had an abortion instead of a gay son. She told me that she wished I had been born with Down syndrome, or had been mentally retarded, you know, things like that.
Who did you meet with at NARTH?
I met Dr. Joseph Nicolasi.
Who was Dr. Joseph Nicolasi?
Nicolasi was executive director of North.
Was he also a therapist?
Yes.
Where would you meet with Mr. Nicolasi?
Most of the time, I would go into my parents' room, and my dad had a separate line at his desk, and I would call in and do over-the-phone sessions for like an hour or an hour and a half, but I did actually fly out to California to do some in-person sessions.
What would you talk about during those sessions?
I don't recall a lot of what was said during those sessions. I recall Nicolosi saying that, homosexuality is incompatible with what God wants for you, and your parents want you to change, and that this is a bad thing.
Were you given any advice on how to be able to suppress your homosexuality in these therapy sessions?
I remember it as a general admonishment, but not a specific technique, no.
You remained a religious person through your experience at NARTH, correct?
Yes.
Is it possible that your experience at NARTH helped you reconcile your faith with your identity as a gay person?
At NARTH, I was being told that I had to reject who I was on the most fundamental level because what that was dirty and bad. While I reconciled my faith with my identity, the therapy I went to at NARTH played no role in that.
How old were you when you stopped going to reversal therapy?
I was 16 years old.
And was it successful in that you were able to suppress your homosexuality?
No, I was just as gay as when I started.
Why did you stop going to reversal therapy?
During this whole thing, my life had kind of fallen apart. I didn't have the world that I grew up in, my faith, which was very important to me, my family, which was even more important to me. Everything just kind of stopped. And I just couldn't take it anymore, and I realized at one point that if I didn't stop going, I wasn't going to survive.
What do you mean by that?
I would have probably killed myself.
How is it that you were able to stop going to reversal therapy?
When I was 16, I separated myself from my family and surrendered myself to the Department of Human Services in Colorado Springs.
And what happened when you surrendered yourself to that department?
I went in and I spoke with the caseworker, and I told her what had been going on in my family, what had been going on with reversal therapy. And I told her that if I went back to that house, I was going to end up killing myself. And so they started a dependency and neglect proceeding to revoke my parents' custody.
So did you stop living with your parents and stop going to therapy?
That's correct.
And did things get better?
I was a 16-year-old kid who had lost everything he ever knew. I didn't really know what to do. I was very lost. And so the next few years, I wandered in and out of jobs. I wandered in and out of attempts at school. I was incredibly suicidal and depressed. I hated my entire life. At one point, I turned to drugs as an escape from reality, and because I was, trying to kill myself. So things did not get better.
How long did this period last?
4 or 5 years.
During this period, were you able to support yourself?
It was a struggle for survival. I wasn't really able to support myself.
Did you rely on any public benefits or anything like that during this period?
Well, when my health care ran out, I had to go to the emergency room to get medical care. And the only counseling I could get were through state schools because I couldn't afford anything else.
Mr. Kendall, you told us that you now work for the Denver Police Department, correct?
That's correct.
How long have you done that?
Over 2 years now.
So it would be fair to say that you're able to support yourself and you're stable.
Yes, it's been a long, hard journey, but I have fought with every bit of myself to take care of myself, to get a good job, to get someplace to live, and I've been able to do that.